And we are live.
Cheers, mate. Cheers. I have my water.
Drink.
Cheers.
Citrus sparkling tea. Cheers.
Icelandic mineral water. Cheers. 8.4 alkaline, baby.
Ooh.
Natural.
Getting all that.
I love my magic water. Love it. All right. So we are here for episode 2 of the Solos podcast. Filming it a little differently this time. We're going to play around, try to get a little higher quality than the last one. So yeah, we're here. We're queer.
Higher quality video, not content. The content is
content's still going to be a pretty low bar.
Yeah.
But the quality of the video is going to be better.
Exactly.
Yes. The inner mind.
That was a good one.
The inner mind. This one came up. We had our last podcast episode, which was a lot about the Solos intention, kind of going into our origins, coming together, the men's group being a core of Solos. And then this idea came through for the next podcast, which was a little bit more broad. It was devoting to the inner mind, to whereas this is still going to be packed and loaded with the intentions of Solos and with the ethos, and we're going to be building that and talking about that a lot over these few episodes. The first 10, I'd say it's going to be a lot around like building this frame of what Solos is, but this one's very specific that we want to hit on both sides of the gender frame, which I think is important.
Definitely. And there's a lot of branches that we could take this. I'm excited about. So we'll see where it goes. But I think it's about the awareness of what goes on, what drives the things that we do, and our actions and our activities. And a lot of people go their whole lives without ever having a conversation like this.
Yes.
That we're going to have today.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And when we get into the spiritual space, we a lot of times start to hear about mind. Mind is the key, the inner mind, mastering the inner mind. But then a lot of people equate mind to brain. And I think we touched on that a little bit in the last episode. But this is going to be a different frame of mind. It's going to allow us to actually see what the full scope of that is and what we've been missing out on by trying to box it into something.
Yeah, the distinction between brain and mind is interesting, because where would you categorize a thought, right? Because a thought, you can trace a thought. There's an electrical activity going on inside your brain, but where does it come from? And the way I see it is that our beings are actually, like, depending on the vibration that we're in, we're a signal that's like a transmitter. We can receive and send out these thoughts, right? So we're also receiving, which I don't think a lot of people think about. Do you think of it like that?
Well, I do, but I think a lot that I associate with the brain is like this masculine output almost. I have this conditioning of it being this like masculine output. But just yesterday you were pointing out to me that seeing with the eyes, and how if it's just a receiver, and it's like we think we're like projecting out, and so I'm reframing it for myself because of the way that you've been describing it.
Yeah, there's a receiving component. 'Cause there has to be, right? If there's a giving, then it's always in balance.
Yeah.
But we don't think about that process because why? Because when we go to act, the information's already there. It's not like when we go to act, it's not there, and we have to think about receiving things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, but we're always receiving, because whatever we're delivering, we had to have received at some point.
Yes, it's always a two-way street, basically, no matter what. And I think that's where that limited definition comes in from my conditioning of like masculine equals output equals giving, but there has to be a masculine reception. There also has to be a feminine giving, and there has to be a feminine reception, because it's like a woman receives in the act of sex, and then to create a baby, she gives, she pushes it out. And so a lot of times I think the perception is, well, at least I've actually read this in like certain Vedic circles and that type of space, that the feminine has two functions and the masculine only has one. but it's limiting the masculine in that definition, basically. It's saying the masculine only has one function, but the masculine also has two. And I think that's the problem that we've drifted into, is we as men and women, we separate the genders, we outsource the genders. So when we go to devote to our inner self as a masculine being, we even look at the inner feminine as like the mother that's outside of us, the feminine that's outside of us. We can look at it that way. And with feminine, they can look at as their inner masculine as the father that's outside of them, the masculine that's outside of them. So it's been like this process of outsourcing, well, not fully like integrating that I am identity of that other energy.
Yes, and it's important to know, like, why mother, why father. Those are our first two, usually, right? Relationships with the masculine, with the feminine, with the masculine. But yes, I think we can very easily overlook that the mother is made up of masculine, feminine, and so is the father, and so are we. So when we think of our father, it's just the masculine, mother is just the feminine, but there's a balance there.
Yeah. So how would you describe the difference between masculine and male?
Masculine, I believe, speaks to the energies, and I know that's woo-woo, so I'll try to bring that down too, but it's kind of like what we were just talking about, everything's in balance, right? So there's a masculine version of something, and then there's a feminine version of that same thing. Whereas male, I think, speaks more to gender.
Biological.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, this is interesting because if we're balanced in our masculine and feminine energies as a man, when we express it, is it always a male expression, or can I express it femininely?
And that's where the paradox comes in, because it's like, I like what you just said though, because you hit the nail on the head, is that there's a feminine and a masculine component to the thing, always, like the two-way street. So if there's compassion, there's feminine compassion, and there's masculine compassion. It's not just masculine power and feminine compassion. And so it always goes together, and wherever there's a masculine, there's a feminine, and vice versa. And so I like how you describe it in terms of physical traits, because I think it still gets confusing when we're trying to look for those those labels inside of us, and mixing the male up with the masculine, almost, which is like, what is even the distinction between that?
Can we, let's put ourselves on the spot here.
Yeah.
Can we come up with a woman who is expressing compassion in a masculine way? Like, what would
in a masculine way.
Or
I have one. I would say Candace Owens.
Okay. In the way that she speaks?
In the way that she speaks.
Okay.
That I don't know if there's compassion there. Is there? Do you feel like there's compassion?
There's anger.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's a good. I mean, I think Deborah's a really good example. Yeah. Deborah's very, very good. My wife. You can check out her last Instagram live, which we'll try to put in the link in the bio. But she's very good at being straightforward, very direct, very slicing through the shit. But she is a female, and she's in this state of compassion, while being very direct and very bold and very strong.
Good example.
Yeah.
Right. So same thing for the reverse. A masculine expressing feminine compassion might be like giving a hug. Is that right? Like something like a little bit more softer.
Yeah, I feel like the encouragement, like not like the you got this, like the very soft and tender, like raising up of the, like the reassuring of that, almost. That's almost how I would see that kind of masculine softness come through. Yeah, so I think what we're articulating, we're working through here, is that it's the giving and the receiving. So like a masculine, so a male giving feminine compassion is almost like asking a question, or like they're wanting to receive, whereas like the rah-rah, like go get them, is more of the masculine. Yeah. Right? So we're starting to... Yeah, so if the male is just pushed into that masculine rah-rah encouragement, then they're going to throw themselves out of balance. Right. And so then the whole labeling thing gets confusing, because it's like, well, it's the feminine energy coming through a male, so is it feminine energy or is it masculine energy? Right. And it's like, it can go in circles and it can go in loops, but the point is that wherever you have one, you have the other, and when you have that, you have the center point of you, which is observing both of those two-way streets.
Yes.
Yes.
And I know we're kind of down a rabbit hole, but this is very important to define based on the whole rest of where we plan to go.
Because the next thing is, what is the inner mind?
Yeah.
And that's basically the setup for the foundation of the inner mind. It's the 5 that we've been going so into the last couple days for ourselves. Like, if you get masculine, feminine on one side, feminine, masculine on the other, and you have a center point, then you have a value of 5 together. So that means you're integrating all those dimensions of what the inner mind is, which, funny enough, we have 5 senses. So it's like the internal senses, basically.
Yeah. So so the mind is receiving the sensory input. Is that how we're thinking of it?
Yeah, like the body is receiving the input from the mind, and the mind is like more than it's like the intuition basically is the inner mind, and the inner mind is plugging into and is connected to all these things in our reality, like touching, tasting, hearing, seeing, whatever the other one is that I'm missing.
Right.
So that's going to have a function in the metaphysical world too. So that's where the intuition is really what is the goal there, because it's the holistic intuition rather than the intuition based off of your gender identity.
Right.
Yes.
And intuition is so important too, because that is the breaking point away from, like, when we start to talk non-physical, I think we probably lose some people, because it can't be proven. You can't touch it. You can't. So, like, by the same token, the inner mind, is that a location in your body, around your body, in your brain? Like, can you point to where it is? Is it just a concept? What does it mean?
Yeah, I think it's the internal awareness, like I'm sensing internally what I'm saying right now, what I'm picking up on anything that needs to come through next. I'm gauging if you're going to come in with input or with a question, and so it's like, as that's all happening, I'm sensing things around me, within me. And so it's just the non-physical. So it's like we have touch, physical feeling. That means that we could have a sense of feeling just from our internal perception, rather than having to physically touch something.
Okay, can you give an example of that?
So, like, I could tune in to these shorts right here and start to, with my mind, sense the fabric. I can sense the texture. I can maybe start to smell something. I can maybe start to deduct or receive something about where those shorts were in the last couple days. Or so it's the perception creating the stimulation and the sensory for then our physical response. Yes.
So this activity though is being processed up here. So that's why people think mind is up here. But if you look at like some muddy shoes and you can feel the bottom of your soles, does that mean your mind is down there because you're perceiving where you're receiving?
And that's the best question, is like, where is the mind? Because it's everywhere and nowhere at the same time. It's the quote that is, God is a circumference that is everywhere, or a center point that is everywhere, and a circumference that is nowhere. And so it's the paradox of, like, we are the center point for that as our body, but if I'm only focused on my third eye and my crown, and I have an integrated trauma in my legs, in my feet, in my arms, then I might not be able to feel that texture as clearly when I tune into it. Because you're going to be trying to create all these associations that you think it should feel like, rather than just tuning in and saying, show me, help me understand you. What do you feel like? And I think that's the sweet spot for the devotion in the internal space.
And you just did a very feminine thing by doing that. You're asking, right? You want to receive, so like, show me. It's not an aggression. It is not an action or an activity. It is Yeah, a question that implies you wish to receive.
Yes, and the questions can be seen as almost like prayers. Like it's like, I had this experience the other day where I went into this meditation and I was like in this hallway, and the hallway was dark and dimmed, and there were like torches, like really dim torches along the wall, and I could see things on the wall that were just answers. They were answers to things, and I couldn't see the questions, and the answers didn't make sense. It was like I don't really have a reference point for what this is. And then it changed, and when I was willing to start asking questions about what I didn't know, the whole hallway lit up, and I could see the questions with the answers with the questions with the answers.
Yeah, wow.
And so it was this whole boulder being removed from me that was like, again, pushing myself too far into what I know and then trying to run on that rather than recognizing what I know and also taking a step back and saying, well, let me ask to receive what I don't know, what is next for me.
Right, which I would say is the sign of a healthy man, or a man who is in touch with his feminine energy, who has maybe worked through some of the trauma of whatever feminine relationships he has. Because it takes a level of humility to admit, right? The toxic part of that is I know everything, and if I don't, I'm going to pretend like I do and try to convince you that I do.
Yeah.
I don't want you to know that I don't know. Because that, why? We can go down that rabbit hole. But the acknowledgement that I don't know, and then the admission of it, if there's maybe a witnesser, is hard for some people. But if you get to that point, and then asking, what is it? It's like, show me.
Yes.
And the best part is you'll get the answer. That's the coolest part. So it's like, why wouldn't you do that? But it requires that feminine aspect of asking, of admitting that you don't.
Yes, yeah, 100%. So what do you feel is one of the bigger things in childhood that causes us to disconnect from what the inner mind is speaking to us or receiving, or our intuition and our senses?
Well, before I answer that, the inner mind, because there are voices that are in our heads, even now, depending on where we are or how old we are, but that inner voice started at a certain age. But I think the inner voice is different than the inner mind.
Yes.
Would you say that? So
Definitely.
The inner mind, you said, is like everywhere, it's always, but the inner voice is just local to me and what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's like we have all these chakras, which all of them make mind, but then we have the throat chakra, which is specific to the voice.
Right.
So it's like we're going to have that specific component, but it's a much larger field that we're working with.
Right. So, what was the question again?
Like the thing that happens to children that causes them to disconnect from that inner mind connection.
Yeah, I think it's related to our parents. So the way, or the people that we receive love from, love tends to be conditional if you haven't done your healing.
Yeah.
And what that means is, if you act a certain way, then I will act a certain way towards you to kind of manipulate your behavior. I don't want you to do that thing, so I'll yell at you, right? Or it's either negative reinforcement or positive reinforcement. And so the child, if, say, it's just a boy and his mother, if the boy sees that his action is making his mother upset, then he's going to curb like his natural, what he wants to do to make her happy. And what that starts to develop is an attunement to other feminine of trying to please or not trying to upset someone. And so what happens with the inner voice is it's just this constant thing of like, don't do that, or I can't do that, or I'm not going to do that because it will upset people. So it happens before we're even aware that thoughts are a thing. And that's the tragic part of it, but it's also the beautiful part to revisit that as an adult, and that's what trauma healing is, and it's going back to all those situations so where that break starts to happen.
Yeah, I love that. And I have a question, but I want to preface it with something that I think I just forgot. I just completely blanked. What were you talking about?
I was talking about the inner mind and then our local mind.
Yes, okay, I got it. So the way that those voices are created, that voice is created, is through a complex. and a complex is a harmonic system. So a complex is represented by a triangle. There's 3 points within a complex. There can't be 2, there can only be 3, which sets like a neural interface. So if you've seen these brain mapping things, you can see how some of them are all these triangles that are connected in different angles and it's like a matrix basically. So it's like if the boy tries to make a joke and the mother responds and is really upset that he made the joke, then that's going to be a relationship right there from the behavior to the response and to between him and the mother. But then something else is going to be associated in there, like the color of the shirt she was wearing, or the furniture you were sitting on, the location you were in. So there's going to be a 3rd point in that complex. So then when it forms, which is when we're younger and the ego, the small self is forming, then that's where the voice starts. So we get like a vocal pattern around that complex. And then we create all these different complexes that have these harmonics that come up as like voices that we're perceiving, that we're receiving. But as you mentioned, some people say that they don't have like an internal dialogue. So what is a thought?
What is a thought? Yeah, I think there's a difference between a mind thought, which I might go into as maybe how I would define channeling, and a self-thought, which is made up of the voice. And the voice you can think about, and I might replace the rest of our conversation with your inner judge, because the voice is never kind. I can't remember ever being like, oh, you did if I'm hearing you did a great job, it's the other one. It's the truer self that's actually happy. So this inner voice, here's where I'm coming to the conclusion, feels justified in the exhaustive approach of fixing the way that you're acting, always. So the inner voice is always a judgment, even if it seems like it's helping, because it's implying that you're not doing it right or there is a better way to do